7 nannies failed to get the newborns to sleep, but the librarian solved it instantly. Michael Patterson was on the verge of a nervous breakdown when the 7th professional nanny walked out of his mansion at 3 in the morning, leaving the newborn triplets crying non-stop. His wife Jennifer, completely exhausted after weeks without a single night of sleep, had collapsed on the living room sofa while he desperately tried to calm all 3 babies by himself. That's when Sarah Johnson, the university librarian where Michael gave lectures on business management, showed up in the early hours to return important documents he had forgotten in his office. She found the door slightly open and heard the baby's relentless cries echoing through the quiet house. "Please forgive me for coming in like this, but the door was open and I heard..." Sarah hesitated in the doorway, watching Michael pacing back and forth with one of the babies in his arms. "I don't know what to do anymore," Michael confessed, his eyes red with exhaustion. "This is the 7th nanny to quit. They won't stop crying, no matter what we try." Sarah observed the scene for a few seconds. Jennifer was fast asleep on the sofa, clearly worn out, while the other 2 babies continued crying in their cribs. Without asking for permission, she stepped forward and held out her arms. "May I try?" she asked gently. Michael, hopeless, handed the baby to her. Sarah cradled the infant and began whispering rhythmic words from an old poem her grandmother used to recite when she was a child. The words flowed like a soft melody with an almost hypnotic rhythm. To Michael's utter astonishment, the baby stopped crying almost instantly. His tiny eyes opened for a moment, as if trying to understand where that soothing voice was coming from, then closed again as he completely relaxed. "How did you..." Michael started, but Sarah was already moving toward the first crib. She repeated the same process with the 2nd baby, then the 3rd. Within minutes, the house was filled with a blessed silence for the first time in 3 weeks. The only sound left was the peaceful breathing of the 3 little ones. "This is impossible," Michael murmured, staring at the sleeping babies. "How did you do it?" Sarah smiled shyly, adjusting the blanket on the last baby. "My grandmother always said words have power when spoken with the right heart. I learned that when I was very young." "Do you have children?" Michael asked, noticing how naturally she handled the babies. Sarah's smile wavered for a moment. "No, I don't." An awkward silence hung in the air, but before Michael could ask anything else, Jennifer stirred on the sofa. She opened her eyes slowly, disoriented. "The babies, they stopped crying?" she asked, still drowsy. "This wonderful woman calmed them down," Michael explained, gesturing to Sarah. Jennifer quickly sat up, still unsteady from exhaustion, and looked at the cribs. Her eyes filled with tears of relief when she saw all 3 children sleeping peacefully. "How is this possible? We tried everything. Absolutely everything." "Sometimes babies just need a different approach," Sarah said modestly. "Every child is unique." Michael rushed to grab his wallet. "How much do you want to stay?" "I'll pay any amount." "Any amount at all?" "No, I can't accept that." Sarah shook her head. "I only came to return these documents. I need to go now." "Please," Jennifer begged, clutching Sarah's arm. "I don't know how much longer I can last without sleep. I'm sure they'll wake up crying again." "We've tried everything with them," Michael said desperately. "Specialized nannies, pediatricians, sleep consultants. Nothing worked. You're our only hope." Sarah looked at the sleeping babies and then at the clearly desperate couple. "I really can't stay. I have responsibilities at the library and..." As if they had heard the conversation, one of the babies began to stir and let out little sounds. Within seconds, all 3 were crying again with the same intensity as before. "See?" said Michael, with a mix of frustration and panic. "They always do this." Sarah hesitated for a moment, seeing the genuine desperation in the couple's eyes. Without a word, she approached the cribs again and repeated the ritual with whispered words. Once more, the babies calmed instantly. "All right," she finally said. "I can come back tomorrow night if you'd like, just to help with the bedtime routine." "Thank you. Thank you so much," said Michael, nearly crying with relief. "How can we repay you?" asked Jennifer. "You don't need to repay me, I just want to help." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The next night, promptly at 9 o'clock, Sarah rang the doorbell at the Patterson mansion. Michael opened the door with visible relief. They started crying 2 hours ago, he explained, leading her inside. Jennifer's upstairs trying to calm them. When they reached the nursery, they found Jennifer sitting on the floor between the 3 cribs, silently crying as the little ones continued to wail. "I can't do this anymore," Jennifer sobbed when she saw Sarah enter. "I feel like a terrible mother. Why can't I calm my own children?" "You're not a terrible mother," Sarah said gently, kneeling beside her. "Being a mother of triplets is one of the hardest things in the world. Anyone would be exhausted." Sarah began her routine with the babies, and once again the miracle happened. One by one they calmed down and drifted off to sleep. Jennifer watched her with a mix of admiration and something that looked like suspicion. "How did you learn to do this?" Jennifer asked once all 3 were asleep. "My grandmother raised 12 children alone in rural Kentucky," Sarah explained. "She always said every child has their own heart language. You just have to learn to speak it." "Do you only work at the library?" Jennifer pressed. "Yes, for 15 years. Why do you ask?" "It's just, you seem to know so much about babies for someone who, well, for someone who doesn't have children." An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Sarah lowered her eyes, her hands trembling slightly. "I had experience before," she said softly. "What kind of experience?" Jennifer pressed, though Michael tried to signal for her to stop. "Jennifer, we don't need to," Michael began. "No, it's fine," Sarah interrupted, taking a deep breath. "I worked in a neonatal unit for 5 years before becoming a librarian. I cared for premature babies and special cases." "Why did you change careers?" Jennifer asked, her voice still laced with suspicion. Sarah was silent for a long moment, looking at the sleeping babies. "Some things happened and I needed to step away from medicine." "What kind of things?" Jennifer insisted. "My wife is just concerned," Michael quickly explained. "We're both exhausted and—" "No, she has every right to ask," Sarah said, standing up. "They're her children. I had a very big personal loss a few years ago. 3 babies. It was too hard to keep working in the unit after that." "You lost 3 babies?" Jennifer asked, her voice now softer. "They were my children," Sarah confessed, tears beginning to fall. "Triplets. They were born prematurely and didn't make it. That's why I learned special techniques for handling multiples. I spent months studying, researching, trying to understand what I could have done differently." The room fell completely silent except for the soft breathing of the babies. Jennifer slowly stood up and, to everyone's surprise, hugged Sarah. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know. I shouldn't have asked like that." "No, you were right to ask," Sarah said, returning the hug. "Any mother would have done the same." Michael watched the scene with a mix of emotion and discomfort. "Sarah, we didn't know. If it's too hard for you to be here—" "Actually," Sarah said, wiping her tears, "helping you has been healing. It's like I can finally use everything I've learned for something good." "So you'll keep coming?" Jennifer asked hopefully. "If you want me to, yes." In the following days, Sarah established a routine. She arrived every night at 9 and stayed until the babies were sound asleep. During that time, she also taught Jennifer and Michael some basic techniques, though neither could fully replicate what she did. Everything was going well until Thursday, when Mrs. Elizabeth, Michael's mother, returned from a 3-week trip to Europe. She arrived at the mansion in the middle of the afternoon, expecting to find everything under control. "Michael, darling, how are my little grandchildren?" she called from the front door, laden with gifts. "Mom," Michael hurried down the stairs, "we didn't know you'd be back today." "I wanted to surprise you. How's the situation with the nannies? Did you solve the problem?" "Actually, yes. We found someone who can calm the babies perfectly." "How wonderful. Where is she? I want to meet her." "She only comes at night. She's the librarian at the university where I give lectures." Mrs. Elizabeth stopped unpacking. "A librarian? Michael, darling, you didn't hire a professional." "Mom, she's amazing. The babies stopped crying the moment she—" "A librarian looking after my grandchildren?" Mrs. Elizabeth interrupted, her voice rising. "Michael, this is unacceptable. Where's your wife?" Jennifer is resting. She managed to sleep a few hours because we know Sarah is coming tonight. Sarah? Who is this Sarah? Where did she come from? What are her references? Mom, she's... Michael, you let a complete stranger take care of our family's babies. How could you be so irresponsible? Jennifer came downstairs at that moment, drawn by the raised voices. Mrs. Elizabeth, it's so good to have you back, she greeted politely. Jennifer, dear, explain this librarian situation to me. Michael isn't being very clear. Jennifer looked at Michael, who signaled for her to be careful with her words. Sarah has helped us so much, Jennifer explained carefully. The babies wouldn't stop crying, and she managed to calm them. But what kind of credentials does she have? Is she trained in nursing? Pediatrics? Actually, she worked in a neonatal unit before. Worked? Why did she stop? Jennifer glanced at Michael again, unsure how much to reveal. There were personal circumstances, she finally said. Personal circumstances? Mrs. Elizabeth repeated suspiciously. What kind of personal circumstances make someone leave the medical field? Mom, that's not our business, Michael tried. Of course it's our business. They're my grandchildren. I want to know exactly who this woman is and why you trusted her. Before anyone could answer, loud cries came from upstairs. All three babies had woken up at the same time and were wailing at the top of their lungs. They're crying again, Mrs. Elizabeth observed. Where's this miracle librarian? She only comes at night, Michael explained, already heading up the stairs. Only at night? What kind of arrangement is this? Jennifer rushed after her husband, leaving Mrs. Elizabeth alone in the living room. When they reached the baby's room, they found the usual chaos. Michael tried to calm one of the babies while Jennifer picked up another, but nothing worked. I'll call Sarah, said Jennifer, grabbing the phone. It's only 4 in the afternoon, Michael reminded her. She's working at the library. It doesn't matter, this is an emergency. Mrs. Elizabeth came up the stairs and found the couple desperately trying to soothe the babies. This is ridiculous, she declared. You've become dependent on a stranger. What kind of parents do that? Mom, please, that's not helping, said Michael, holding the crying baby in his arms. I'll call the most expensive nanny agency in New York City. This ends today. Jennifer managed to reach Sarah, who promised to come as soon as she could close the library early. Meanwhile, Mrs. Elizabeth was already on the phone, hiring a new professional nanny. When Sarah arrived at 6 in the evening, she found an elegant woman with graying hair waiting in the living room, wearing an unfriendly expression. You must be the librarian, Mrs. Elizabeth said coldly. I'm Sarah Johnson. And you are? Elizabeth Patterson, Michael's mother and grandmother of the babies you've been caring for. Mrs. Elizabeth's tone made it clear she disapproved of the situation. Sarah nodded politely. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Elizabeth. I'll go upstairs to check on the babies. Actually, you won't. Mrs. Elizabeth blocked her way. I've hired a professional nanny. Your services are no longer needed. Mom? Michael rushed down the stairs. Sarah, thank goodness you're here. They're inconsolable upstairs. I was just explaining to the young lady that we don't need her anymore, Mrs. Elizabeth said firmly. What do you mean we don't need her? Asked Jennifer, who was also coming downstairs. Mom, with all due respect, this is our decision. I'm these babies' grandmother, and I won't allow a stranger. Mrs. Elizabeth, Sarah interrupted gently. I understand your concern. I am a stranger. If you'd prefer I don't come anymore, I'll respect that. We don't want you to stop coming, Jennifer said quickly. Jennifer, you're not thinking clearly, Mrs. Elizabeth retorted. You know nothing about this woman. Why did she leave the medical field? Why does she work for free? No one does that out of kindness. There's always an ulterior motive. Mom, that's outrageous, Michael defended. Oh, then explain this to me. Why would a medical professional give it all up to work in a library? What kind of problem forced her to completely change her life? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, listening to the argument. Her eyes filled with tears, but she kept her dignity. Mrs. Elizabeth is right, she finally said. You don't really know me. It's normal to be suspicious. Sarah, no, Jennifer protested. "If you want, I can explain my whole story. I have nothing to hide." "You don't owe anyone an explanation," Michael said. "Actually, I do," Sarah replied. "They're your children. You have every right to know." She took a deep breath and looked directly at Mrs. Elizabeth. "6 years ago, I lost my triplets. They were born at 28 weeks and spent 3 months in the NICU where I worked. I was a specialized nurse. I knew every procedure, every technique. Still, I couldn't save them." Silence filled the room. Mrs. Elizabeth, who had been ready for a confrontation, was left speechless. "After they were gone," Sarah continued, "I couldn't work in the field anymore. Every time I saw a premature baby, I remembered my own. I fell into deep depression and had to step away. The library offered me a job, and I took it. I needed peace, silence, books that wouldn't remind me of my loss." "Sarah," Jennifer whispered, "when I heard your babies crying that early morning, it was like something woke up inside me. All the knowledge I gained trying to save my children could finally be used to help other babies. I won't accept payment because this isn't work for me. It's a way to honor my children's memory." Mrs. Elizabeth had sat down during the story, her expression completely changing. "My grandchildren? How can you even look at them without?" "It hurts," admitted Sarah. "It hurts so much, but it also heals. Every night I manage to help them sleep peacefully, I feel like my children would approve. They'd be the same age as your triplets if they had survived." The sound of crying babies from upstairs interrupted the moment. Everyone looked up at the ceiling. "The new nanny arrived an hour ago," Mrs. Elizabeth said quietly. "She's up there trying to calm them down." Can I go up?" Sarah asked hesitantly. "Please," said Michael. When they reached the baby's room, they found a middle-aged woman in a white uniform trying to feed one of the babies with a bottle while the other 2 cried in their cribs. "They won't take the bottle," the nanny explained, "and the rocking technique isn't working." "Sarah, please," Jennifer pleaded. Sarah stepped forward slowly, as if asking for permission. She began with her whispered words, those rhythmic verses that seemed to carry a magical power. One by one, the babies settled down. The professional nanny watched in fascination. "How did you do that? I've never seen anything like it in 20 years of working." "It's a technique I developed," Sarah explained modestly. "Every baby responds to different sound frequencies." "Sound frequencies?" the nanny asked, intrigued. "The rhythm, the tone, the melody of the words. It has to be specific for each child." Mrs. Elizabeth stepped closer to Sarah. "I'm sorry," she said sincerely. "I didn't know your story. I was unfair." "You don't need to apologize," Sarah replied. "Any grandmother would do the same. You were protecting the babies." "But you're protecting them too," Mrs. Elizabeth acknowledged. "In a way, none of us could." The professional nanny watched the interaction between Sarah and the babies. "I'd love to learn this technique if possible," she said. "It could help with other babies." "Of course," Sarah agreed, "but it's not something you learn quickly. Every child is different." "Sarah," Michael said, "we'd like to make your position here official. Not as a nanny, but as a family consultant with a salary and everything." "I don't need a salary," Sarah protested. "But we need you to accept," Jennifer insisted. "It's important to us." "And to me too," Mrs. Elizabeth added. "I want you to feel like part of the family." Sarah looked at the babies sleeping peacefully, then at the people around her. For the first time in years, she felt like she might have a family again, even if it wasn't the one she had lost. "All right," she finally agreed, "but on one condition." "Anything," Michael said. "I want to teach the technique to all of you. The babies need to get used to other voices too. They can't depend only on me." "Perfect," Jennifer agreed. The professional nanny, whose name was Nancy, decided to stay and learn Sarah's techniques. In the days that followed, she became a dedicated student, taking notes in a notebook. "It's fascinating," Nancy remarked as she watched Sarah work. "You change the rhythm depending on the baby." "Exactly. Ethan responds better to slower verses, Emma Grace prefers faster rhythms, and William likes variations in tone." "How did you figure that out?" "Observation. Every baby gave me different signals. Some people think newborns are all the same, but they're not. Each one already has their own personality. Nancy wrote everything down diligently. Mrs. Elizabeth also joined the learning sessions, though she struggled more. "I can't make my voice as soft as yours," she complained. "It doesn't need to be the same," Sarah explained patiently. "It needs to be genuine. Babies can feel when words come from the heart." "What do you mean?" "When you speak with real love, your voice naturally changes. Your breathing becomes calmer, your tone more soothing. Babies notice that." Jennifer was the quickest to learn the techniques. "I think it's because I'm the mother," she remarked after managing to calm Emma Grace on her own. "It's because you genuinely want them to feel safe," Sarah corrected. "That matters more than any technique." Everything was working perfectly until the third week, when Rebecca showed up, Michael's sister and a pediatric specialist. She had come from Washington, D.C. to meet her nephews and was intrigued by the stories about Sarah. "This idea of calming triplets with poetry makes no medical sense," she declared on the very first night. "There must be a scientific explanation." "Rebecca, the explanation doesn't matter," Michael said. "What matters is that it works." "Of course it matters. If there's a revolutionary technique for soothing babies, it should be documented, studied, replicated." "I didn't develop this to be a medical technique," Sarah explained when introduced to Rebecca. "It came from a personal need." "But it could help thousands of families," Rebecca insisted. "Have you ever thought about publishing a study?" "No, I never have." "You should. What you're doing is extraordinary." Sarah grew uncomfortable with the attention. She only wanted to help the Patterson family, not become the subject of scientific study. "Rebecca, leave Sarah alone," Jennifer pleaded. "She doesn't have to turn this into medical research." "I'm just saying it could help so many more people." "And what if she doesn't want to? Why wouldn't she? It's an important discovery." The tension in the air was palpable. Sarah focused on the babies, trying to ignore the argument. But Rebecca didn't give up easily. "Sarah, you said you worked in a neonatal unit. Which hospital?" "Memorial Hospital in Atlanta." "Do you know Dr. Robert Anderson?" "I do. Why?" "He's my postdoctoral advisor. I could talk to him about your technique." "Please don't," Sarah said quickly. "Why not?" Sarah hesitated, glancing at the babies who were growing restless from the tension in the room. "Because I don't want my past revisited. I changed my life for a reason." "But if your technique could save other babies—" "Rebecca, enough," Michael interrupted firmly. Sarah said no. "Respect her decision." "You don't understand the importance of this." "We understand perfectly," Mrs. Elizabeth said. "And we understand that not everything in life needs to be turned into a scientific study. Some things are simply human gifts." Rebecca was frustrated, but realized she was alone in the argument. In the following days, she watched Sarah work with the babies, clearly fascinated but respecting the request not to turn it into research. Still, Rebecca's persistence had planted a seed of doubt in Sarah. She began questioning if she was doing the right thing. Maybe she should try to help other families. Maybe she was being selfish by keeping her techniques just for the Patterson's triplets. One night after calming the babies, she stayed talking with Jennifer. "Do you think your sister-in-law is right?" Sarah asked. "About what?" "About me sharing the techniques with other parents." Jennifer thought carefully before answering. "I think you should do what feels right for you, not because Rebecca or anyone else says so, but because you truly want to." "I don't know if I do. When I think about going back to hospitals, seeing other premature babies, it doesn't have to be in hospitals. You could teach parents at home, like you're doing with us, but what if it doesn't work with other babies? What if what I do only works with Ethan, Emma Grace, and William? Then at least you tried." "But I'm sure it would work. I saw how quickly Nancy learned. Nancy is an experienced nurse. Regular parents might not have the same ease, or they might have even more ease, because the love for their children gives a motivation no professional training can match." Sarah considered Jennifer's words. Maybe there was a way to help other families without exposing herself completely. "What if I created a small group of parents?" she thought aloud. "Some families going through similar struggles." "I think that's a wonderful idea," Jennifer approved. You could start small with people who really need it. Would you help me? You've already mastered some techniques. Of course, it would be an honor to help other mothers. They began planning discreetly. Jennifer knew other mothers through the triplets' pediatrician, some who also struggled with calming babies who cried excessively. The first family they decided to approach was Melissa Carter's, a single mother of premature twins who was desperate. She had reached out to Dr. Williams, the triplets' pediatrician, because her babies cried incessantly and she couldn't work or rest. "Melissa, I'd like to introduce you to someone who might help," Jennifer said over the phone. "I've tried everything, Jennifer. Nannies, consultants, even homeopathy. Nothing works. This person is different. She has a special technique that worked with our triplets." "A special technique? What kind of technique?" "It's hard to explain over the phone. Could we come by tomorrow?" "Of course, I'm willing to try anything." When Sarah and Jennifer arrived at Melissa's home, they found a familiar scene: an exhausted mother, two babies crying non-stop, and an apartment in complete chaos. "I haven't slept in 3 days," Melissa explained, clearly at her limit. "My mother helps when she can, but she works and—" "May I try with them?" Sarah asked gently. "Please." Sarah approached the cribs where the twins were crying. She observed for a moment before beginning. Each baby was different, needing a specific approach. With the first baby, she tried the same technique that worked with Ethan, but there was no result. She adjusted the rhythm, experimented with different tones. Finally, she found a combination that calmed the boy. With the girl, the process was different. She responded better to a higher-pitched melody, almost like a very soft lullaby. Within 15 minutes, both babies were asleep. "How?" Melissa began, but the words wouldn't come. "Every baby has their own language," Sarah explained. "We just need to figure out what it is." "Can you teach me?" "Of course, that's why I'm here." For the next 2 hours, Sarah taught Melissa the basics of her technique. It wasn't just about the words or the rhythm, but the intention behind each sound. "The most important thing," Sarah explained, "is that you truly want them to feel safe. Babies sense when we're anxious or desperate. They absorb our energy." "How do I do that when I'm actually desperate?" Melissa asked honestly. "Take a deep breath before approaching them. Imagine you're transferring all your calm and love through your voice. Even if you don't feel calm, pretend you do. Eventually, the feeling becomes real." Melissa practiced under Sarah's guidance. At first, her voice was tense, anxious, but gradually she relaxed and found her own rhythm. "I did it," she exclaimed, when the baby who had woken up calmed at her voice. "You did," Sarah confirmed, smiling. "Now just keep practicing. Can I call if I struggle?" "Of course. And I'll be back next week to see how things are going." When they left Melissa's house, Jennifer was beaming. "See how well it worked? You have a real gift, Sarah." "It's not a gift," Sarah protested. "It's knowledge anyone can learn. Knowledge combined with genuine compassion, that's rare." In the following days, Sarah visited 2 more families referred by Dr. Williams. In both cases, she achieved positive results, though each situation required different adaptations to her technique. Word began spreading quietly among parents. It wasn't advertising or marketing, but the natural word of mouth from families who'd finally found peace after weeks of despair. Then something unexpected happened. The mother of one family Sarah had helped worked for a local Boston magazine and wrote a short article about the baby whisperer. The article didn't mention Sarah's name or specific details, but described the experience movingly. The article reached Rebecca, who immediately recognized who it was about. "Sarah's helping other families and didn't tell me," she said to Michael. "Why would she hide this from me?" "Maybe because you pressured her too much about turning it all into scientific research," Michael replied. "But now it's in the press. If I'd documented everything from the start, we could have solid scientific data." "Rebecca, not everything in life needs scientific documentation. Sometimes just helping people is enough. But imagine how many more families we could help with concrete data, established protocols, and imagine turning a genuine act of love into a cold, impersonal medical protocol." The siblings' argument escalated when Sarah arrived for the evening session with the triplets. I heard you're helping other families, Rebecca said as soon as she walked in. A few? Sarah confirmed cautiously. Why didn't you tell me? We could have documented the cases, created a database. Because I don't want it turned into a scientific study, Sarah said firmly. I just want to help parents in need. But you could help so many more parents if… Rebecca, stop, Jennifer interrupted. Sarah's made her wishes clear. You don't understand the wasted potential here. And you don't understand that not everything needs scientific validation to have value, Mrs. Elizabeth countered. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers tremendously. Now, continuing. The tension in the house was affecting the babies, who grew more irritable during Rebecca's visits. Sarah noticed they reacted to the negative energy in the air. Maybe I should stop coming for a few days, Sarah suggested to Jennifer, until things calm down. Absolutely not, Jennifer protested. Rebecca should understand she's causing problems. I don't want to divide the family. You're not causing anything. Rebecca's the one being stubborn. Still, maybe it's best I take a break. Sarah, please don't abandon us because of my sister-in-law. It's not abandonment, just time for things to settle. But when Sarah stopped visiting, the triplets immediately noticed the difference. Even with Nancy, the professional nanny, using the techniques she'd learned, they couldn't achieve the same calm they had with Sarah. They miss her, Nancy observed. They respond to the techniques, but not as strongly. Because they formed a special bond with her, Jennifer explained. Nancy, you can soothe them, but you can't completely replace Sarah. I see, it's like she's part of their family. Exactly. Michael had a serious talk with Rebecca. Your insistence is pushing Sarah away, he said. If she stops coming for good, I'll hold you responsible. I'm not doing anything wrong, Rebecca defended herself. I just want her to use her talent to help more people. She's already helping others, in her own way, at her own pace. But she could be so much more effective with a proper scientific approach. Rebecca, you're missing the point. Sarah doesn't want to be efficient. She wants to be human. She wants to help each family individually, to create real connections, not apply standardized protocols. That's not sustainable on a large scale. She doesn't want a large scale. She wants to help a few families, one at a time, in the most personal way possible. This is wasting immense potential, or it's preserving humanity in a world that wants to turn everything into an industrial process. The conversation resolved nothing, but it made Rebecca reflect on her motivations. Did she truly want to help more families, or did she just want her name tied to a major scientific discovery? Meanwhile, Sarah continued quietly visiting other families, but something had changed. The joy she felt working with the Patterson triplets wasn't the same with other children. She realized she had formed a special bond with Ethan, Emma Grace, and William that went beyond any professional technique. Melissa, the mother of the twins Sarah had helped, called Jennifer, concerned. Sarah didn't come this week, she said. The babies are fine. They're using the techniques she taught me, but I'm worried. She seemed sad during her last visit. She's going through a rough time, Jennifer explained vaguely. Is it about that magazine article? I read it and thought it might be about her. Partly, yes. Is there any way I can help? She did so much for me and my children. Actually, maybe you can. Do you know other mothers Sarah has helped? I know 3. Why? I'm thinking of organizing something to show her how important her work is. What kind of thing? I'm not sure yet, but I want her to know it's not just our family who values her. Jennifer began planning a small gathering with the families Sarah had helped. It wouldn't be anything big or public, just an intimate meeting so Sarah could see the real impact of her work. Meanwhile, the triplets kept showing signs of missing Sarah. They still responded to Nancy's techniques, but not as easily. Nights became harder again, though not as chaotic as before Sarah arrived. We need to bring her back, Michael told Jennifer. The babies need her. I know. I'm working on it. How? Trust me. The following Saturday, Jennifer invited Sarah over for coffee without mentioning others would be there. When Sarah arrived, she found the living room full of mothers with their babies. Jennifer, what is this? She asked, confused. These are some of the families you've helped, Jennifer explained. They wanted to thank you in person. Sarah visibly tensed. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, we did," Melissa said, standing with her twins in her arms. "You saved my sanity, literally saved my life." "That's an exaggeration," Sarah murmured. "It's not," another mother said. "I was considering putting my daughter up for adoption because I couldn't handle the constant crying. You taught me I could be a good mother." "And I was on the edge of postpartum depression," a third mother added. "What you did wasn't just about calming the baby, it was about calming me too." Sarah looked around at all the peaceful families, calm babies, smiling mothers. "You did this yourselves," she said. "I just taught you a few techniques." "You taught us so much more than that," Melissa corrected. "She taught us hope. She taught us that it was possible to have peace at home. And she taught us that every baby is unique and special," added another mother. "She didn't try to apply a standard formula. She created something specific for each of our children." Sarah began to cry. She hadn't expected her work to have such a profound impact on these families' lives. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea how much this means to me." "Means?" Jennifer asked. "Why?" "Because sometimes I feel like I'm just trying to make up for not being able to save my own children, as if I'm trying to be a good mother to other people's babies because I failed mine." "You didn't fail your children," Melissa said firmly. "Premature births are complicated, unpredictable. No medical knowledge can guarantee an outcome. But I was a specialized nurse. I should have known how to do more." "And you did," another mother interrupted. "Everything you learned trying to help your children, you're using to help ours. Your babies didn't leave in vain. They left behind a mother who knows how to care for other children in a way no one else does. Your children live on through the good you do," Jennifer added. "Every family you help is an extension of the love you had for them." Sarah cried even harder, but now they were tears of relief and gratitude. "Do you want me to keep going?" she asked. "We do," they all replied in unison. "Even knowing I can't help everyone? That I can only work with a few families at a time?" "Especially because of that," Melissa said. "Because you dedicate yourself completely to each family. We're not numbers or case studies. We're people who matter to you." "And you matter to us," Jennifer finished. Just then, Rebecca appeared at the door. She had come to visit her nephews and stumbled upon the gathering. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, clearly surprised by the scene. "Rebecca, come here," Jennifer called. "These are the families Sarah has helped." Rebecca politely greeted all the mothers, noticing the calm babies and the visibly happy families. "This is incredible," she said to Sarah. "How many families have you helped?" "About 8 or 9, Sarah replied. "In how long?" 2 months. Rebecca did a quick calculation in her head. "If you keep this pace, in a year you'll have helped over 50 families. In 5 years, more than 200. "Rebecca, where are you going with this?" Jennifer asked, picking up on her sister-in-law's tone. "I'm saying maybe I was wrong about turning this into scientific research. Maybe Sarah's approach is more effective than any medical protocol." "How so?" Sarah asked. "Medical protocols are cold, impersonal. What you do is warm, individual. Each family gets unique attention, personalized care. That's far more valuable than any standardized manual." "You changed your mind?" Michael asked, surprised. "I did. Seeing these families, I realize what Sarah does can't be replicated on a large scale because it would lose exactly what makes it special: genuine human connection." "Thank you for understanding," Sarah said. "Actually, I want to apologize," Rebecca continued. "I was so focused on the scientific potential that I forgot about the human potential. You're doing something far more important than any research." "What am I doing?" "You're healing families one at a time, with love, patience, and dedication. That's worth more than any scientific paper." The gathering ended with all the mothers planning ways to stay in touch and support one another. Sarah left feeling renewed, certain she was on the right path. That evening, she returned to the Patterson mansion to resume her routine with the triplets. When she entered their room, all 3 babies seemed to recognize her immediately. Ethan stretched his little arms toward her, Emma Grace smiled, and William made those soft sounds babies make when they're happy. "They missed you," said Jennifer, watching her children's reaction. "I missed them too," confessed Sarah, picking Ethan up. As she soothed the babies with whispered words, the entire Patterson family watched in silence. Mrs. Elizabeth, Michael, Jennifer, Rebecca, and Nancy, all recognizing they were witnessing something special. "Do you know what impresses me the most?" said Mrs. Elizabeth after the babies fell asleep. "What?" asked Sarah. "How you turned your pain into healing for others. Many people who go through losses like yours shut themselves off from the world. You opened up. It wasn't easy. I spent years closing myself off. But in the end, you chose to open up. That's courage. Or necessity," Sarah said modestly. "I needed to find meaning in my loss. And you did. Your children would be proud to see how many families you're helping." Sarah smiled, feeling for the first time since losing her babies that she had found her true calling. It wasn't being a nurse in a hospital or a librarian in a quiet university. It was being a bridge between suffering and healing, one at a time, family by family. In the weeks that followed, Sarah developed a balanced routine. 3 nights a week, she stayed with the Pattersons triplets. 2 nights she visited other families, and 2 nights she rested or prepared. Nancy took on more responsibilities with the triplets, applying the techniques she had learned and giving Sarah more freedom to help other families. "You've created something beautiful," Jennifer said one evening, watching Sarah work with Emma Grace. "A network of families supporting each other, a methodology that works, a way to turn pain into love." "We created it," Sarah corrected. "You helped me believe it was possible. Nancy helped me expand the work. Mrs. Elizabeth made me feel part of a family again. Even Rebecca, with all her scientific insistence, made me reflect on the purpose of what I do." "And the babies?" asked Jennifer. "What did they create?" Sarah looked at the 3 triplets sleeping peacefully. "They gave me back my reason to live," she said simply. "They reminded me I can still be a mother, even without living biological children. I can be a mother to all the children who need my care." "You're a mother of the heart," Jennifer said, hugging Sarah, "for our children and for so many others." "And a daughter of the heart too," added Mrs. Elizabeth, who had overheard the conversation from the doorway. "To me, you're already part of this family." Sarah felt her heart fill in a way she hadn't experienced in years. She had found her family, her calling, and her peace. Most importantly, she had found a way to honor her children's memory that wasn't just about pain, but also joy and hope. A few months later, Dr. Williams, the triplets' pediatrician, asked to speak with Sarah. "I've been watching the work you do," he said. "It's extraordinary. I'd like to refer more families to you, if you're willing." "I'm always willing, Dr. Williams, but I have limitations." "What kind of limitations?" "I can only work with a few families at a time. I need to create a real connection with each baby, understand their specific needs. I can't handle too many families at once." "I understand. How many families can you support at the same time?" 10 at most. More than that, the quality of care suffers. 10 happy, well-supported families are better than 50, partially helped, the doctor agreed. "Can I refer specific cases, families who truly need it, and where other approaches haven't worked?" "Of course. That's exactly the kind of work I want to do." Williams became an important ally, referring families in particularly difficult situations and providing medical support when needed. He also discreetly documented the outcomes, not for scientific publication, but to better understand how Sarah's work complemented traditional medical care. "What you do doesn't replace medicine," he explained to Sarah. "It complements it. Babies need proper medical care, but they also need emotional connection, a sense of security. You provide that in a unique way. It's good to know I'm not interfering with medical work. You're enriching medical work. Some of the babies you've helped have shown improvements not just in behavior, but also in physical indicators like weight gain and sleep patterns." "Babies who feel secure develop better," Sarah observed. "Exactly. And you provide a security that goes beyond what any medication can offer." The informal partnership with Dr. Williams brought stability to Sarah's work. She no longer had to worry about finding families who needed help. They came through medical referrals, and she didn't have to worry about medical aspects beyond her expertise. The doctor provided that support. A year after her first meeting with the Patterson triplets, Sarah was caring for her 10th family when she received an unexpected call. "Sarah? It's Elizabeth Patterson." "Mrs. Elizabeth, how are the babies?" "They're wonderful, walking, saying a few words, sleeping through the night. But I didn't call to talk about the babies." "What happened?" "I wanted to invite you to a special dinner on Saturday. The whole family will be here." "What's the occasion?" "We'll announce it then. Just come, please." On Saturday, Sarah arrived at the Patterson mansion wearing a navy blue dress she had bought especially for the occasion. When she entered the room, she found not only the family, but also Nancy, Dr. Williams, and several of the mothers she had helped over the year. "What's all this?" she asked, confused. "It's a celebration," Michael explained. "It's been a year since you came into our lives and changed everything." "We want to give you a gift," said Jennifer, handing her an envelope. Sarah opened it and found legal documents. "What is this?" "The paperwork for a foundation," Michael explained. "The Ethan, Emma Grace, and William Foundation. We created it in our children's name to support the work you do." "I don't understand." "The foundation will fund your activities," Mrs. Elizabeth clarified, "so you can focus entirely on helping families without worrying about finances. It will also provide support for other needs," added Rebecca. "Transportation, materials, even psychological support for you when you need it. And it will create a small network of professionals who can learn your techniques," Dr. Williams finished. "Not to replace you, but to carefully expand the reach of your work." Sarah looked at the documents, then at all the people in the room and began to cry. "This is too much," she whispered. "I don't deserve all this." "Yes, you do," said Melissa, speaking for all the mothers present. "You gave us back our families, now we want to give you a way to help many more." "But on one condition," Jennifer said, smiling. "You'll still be our family consultant 3 nights a week. The triplets still need Aunt Sarah." "Aunt Sarah," she repeated, surprised. "That's what they'll call you when they start talking better," Michael explained. "To them, you're family." Sarah looked around at the people surrounding her, feeling immense gratitude. She had lost her biological children, but had gained a much larger family. She had lost her medical career, but had found a far more meaningful calling. "There's one more thing," Mrs. Elizabeth said mysteriously. "What?" "Come with me." Mrs. Elizabeth led her to a room that had once been an office, but was now transformed into a cozy space with comfortable armchairs, a children's library, baby-friendly toys, and cushions scattered on the floor. "This is your space," Mrs. Elizabeth explained, "for when you want to meet families here instead of going to their homes, a neutral, comfortable place equipped with everything you might need." "You've thought of everything," Sarah said, moved. "We wanted you to know how important you are to us, how you've changed our lives. You've changed mine too." That night, after everyone had left, Sarah stayed alone in the new room, reflecting on the path that had brought her there. A year ago, she was a lonely librarian who buried herself in books to escape the pain. Now she had an adoptive family, a calling that fulfilled her completely, and a future full of possibilities to help other families. She thought of her triplets, who had left this world too soon. For the longest time, she believed their deaths had been the end of the story. Now she realized it had only been the beginning of a different story, one just as full of love and meaning. "Thank you," she whispered into the air, speaking to the children she would always carry in her heart, "for teaching me that love doesn't end when life does, that mothers remain mothers, even when they have no children to care for physically, and that sometimes the greatest pain can become the greatest source of healing for others." She picked up one of the books from the shelf, a collection of children's poems, and flipped through it until she found the poem her grandmother used to recite, the one that had changed everything on that first early morning with the Pattersons' triplets. She read it aloud, as she always did, with the perfect rhythm and soothing tone that calmed babies and mended hearts. Her voice echoed through the empty room, yet somehow she didn't feel alone. She felt surrounded by all the babies she had helped, all the families she had touched, and all the children she would yet meet through her new life's mission. The end of the story. Now tell me, what did you think of this touching story? Do you believe Sarah made the right choices by turning her pain into healing for other families? Write in the comments which part moved you the most. And if you know anyone who has gone through a similar situation, your likes and subscriptions help us keep bringing heartwarming stories like this one.